One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Well, welcome in one and all to another episode of the Three Technique, the college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and Jimmy's and Joe's. Usually when you hear my voice off the top, it's just a Garrett and Trey show, but we have all three members of Three Tech HQ back together for, gosh, guys, it feels like the first time in months. How are we doing over
I
here?
went and looked. It's been since like 2 months ago.
Man. It's the off season for everybody, right? Like we all have obligations.
We've been off for sure.
We have family stuff. We have sicknesses. We have stuff that just comes up with life. And that's the blessing of having three of us, is that two of us can handle the show when one is out. But Mitch, it's great to have all three of us back together.
It is. I'm not absent, as you mentioned. The gang's all here. And yeah, no doubt having three of us not only just makes like the dynamic, I think, more interesting and more fun on a regular basis to have multiple different voices, and then we can bring guests on and it's truly a party. But yeah, when I was hosting a golf podcast back in the day, my co-host had a stretch where he was either sick or moving or just life was going on. And it was like a month and a half of solo pods. And I was like, oh gosh, yeah, never doing this again. So glad to have all of us back. And yeah, Trey, it's your ship today. So I'm excited to see where you take this.
Oh, we have a really fun show in store today. We're getting to talk about some actual stuff on the field and some projections into the fall. And obviously we're a little bit further away from preview season in full earnest. We've got the spring transfer portal that we hope doesn't render anything that we're talking about today a moot point. But guys, before we get into it, this portal's been open for a few days at this point, as we're recording this on a Saturday morning. Thoughts on just the general vibe of college football as we take in the spring portal? Obviously, Mitch and I got to talk about the whole Nico drama last week on the pod. Hopefully you've gotten a chance to check that out. Not a lot of updates on our takes there. Still kind of feel about the same way that we did last week, but just general thoughts as we watch the spring portal drama unfold.
I think the Nico drama that has continued to progress makes Tennessee look better and better in all of this. And that was kind of the theme of our episode last week, Trey, that we really felt like Tennessee was kind of in the right here. But the fact that Nico's taken to Instagram and is, calling out some of these reports and posting pictures from the playoff game saying, oh, we were just about to throw the game. He's giving me crazy ex-girlfriend vibes. I know he's trying to sling mud back, but just everything that's come out again with his dad and now Nico needing to just truly stay offline in all of this. I'm continuing to feel like Tennessee might have dodged a $4 million bullet here.
Yeah, and I know that you guys broke that down too, but the fact that this could be the first step towards saving the sport a little bit, because obviously we've seen that this has been going a little bit crazy. The portal has been unchecked, and there's still going to be plenty of that this cycle where it's just complete unchecked. Oh, this guy was on a roster and was going to compete, but so-and-so big name school threw $20 million at him just because they could or something. Like, there's going to be some stupid stuff that happens anyways, but it's nice to see that, yeah, we're finally going to start moving the right direction, I think, and we're going to see some of this start to mitigate where a school goes, no, we're not going to pay you that. I know you're our starting quarterback. It might leave us a little high and dry in the short term, but no, I'm not just going to pay you because you want to hold me hostage for throwing 100 yards in a playoff game. Like, I'm not going to do that. It's not worth it to me. So, yeah, it's good on Tennessee, and I'm hoping that that's the first step in the right direction for kind of saving the sport and making sure that we're not going to do this forever.
I'm hopeful for that too, but as the spring portal has opened up and more and more guys that were even sitting starters at some places are entering and kind of leaving some schools in a tailspin, not just Tennessee, but all around the country. It seems like there was some goodwill after the Nico fallout. It seemed like the fans kind of had some hope for what Garrett's talking about there. But the discourse I've seen online this week has just been a lot of doom and gloom back into it. Just really questioning how the spring portal is going to impact and just wondering how coaches deal with all this. It's not easy. And to have guys that you think are locked and loaded and in your starting rotation for the fall going into the spring portal, and then to lose them right after spring practice after you've invested a ton of time into them. It's just a never-ending cycle that's making the job of these coaches and GMs and whole support staffs a lot harder.
I think South Alabama is the program that I felt the sorriest for this last week. Now, they were able to supposedly talk some starters. Is it the Vosine brothers? Is that how you say it? I think they talked them out of the portal, but Gio Lopez goes absolutely nuts last year. And I don't think anybody looked at him and went, yep, prototypical NFL quarterback right there. He's kind of a loose cannon from the left side and just very athletic and makes stuff happen. All of a sudden, up and leaves, and now he's at North Carolina. He's Bill Belichick's big new prospect up there in Chapel Hill. David Stone, the 5-star all-everything defensive lineman, entering the portal last night as we're recording this on a Saturday for the Oklahoma Sooners. No real insight as to why he hit the portal, but I just saw kind of cursory glances that he's headed up to Columbus to play for Ohio State and collect a bag. So, yeah, a lot of like landmines, I feel like, in this spring window where you never really know, is it going to be, a backup Trey? You talked about last week, like quarterbacks, is probably going to be somebody that lost the spring battle. And then we've seen starters just up and say, actually grass is greener somewhere else. College fans, you got to have your head on a swivel in the spring portal. You think you know what your roster looks like, and literally 30 seconds later, you can be trying to triage what's left of a position group. So that's, I think, the most frustrating thing. But we'll just continue to ride it out.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest advice in the portal right now for a lot of teams and a lot of fans that are trying to watch and figure out what your team's going to look like this fall is wait until like that first week of August and then take a peek at your roster and see who's left, because you don't know. There's no way to really know at this point. Just see what happens in August, and we'll say like, oh, that quarterback's still here. Okay, I guess I'll be optimistic because he can't transfer at this point. Or like, oh, we still got a couple of wide receivers. Like just wait it out, get excited, but then don't get excited, because as soon as you get excited about that guy who's transferring in, he's going to transfer out and is actually going to that other school. It's just not worth it. Don't get your hopes up for it. Just wait till August and you can decide what the roster looks like then.
I wish we could wait till August for our previews, because that's
oh yeah.
Oh man, this is why we don't start writing our previews in the spring, right? Because we have a ton of time right now, but they become obsolete very quickly in this era. Guys, this is not a portal show. We would, if we tried to do one of those, it would become obsolete and out of date so quickly.
Before we even post.
Yeah, exactly. So we keep that. We'll let that just kind of coverage flow to our Twitter account and social media. You can make sure you're following us at 3TechPod on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you're subscribed to the show on YouTube and your preferred podcast app of choice, so you don't miss any of the off-season and preview season coverage that we've got coming up. Guys, I want to take a moment for our sponsor as well, Home Field Apparel, our keystone sponsor of this show. You can use code 3TechPod at Home Field Apparel to get a nice discount on your first order from them. And if you haven't made an order from Home Field Apparel, might I suggest the new baseball and softball collections that they just dropped this week? Because my goodness, 20 new schools. The best ones I saw, a little biased of course, but A&M's was really awesome. Indiana's was super sweet as well. East Carolina. They didn't just do the big schools and the big traditional powers. There's a lot of smaller schools that got some nice merch as well. They've got pullover jerseys inspired by the 70s and 80s. They've got hats inspired by the 70s and 80s. And if you buy both together right now, you get a nice little carry-on bag that looked really cool as well. So use that code 3TechPod, get yourself a nice little discount on your first order. If you've ordered before, we'd really appreciate it if you shop through our link that's in the bio on our Twitter account as well. Guys, let's jump into some sleepers and spoilers. That's our theme for today's show. We are talking teams that could sneak up on us, both in a prognostication process. Maybe the national narrative on these teams is they're flying under the radar a little bit, or maybe they have a schedule that sets up where they could really throw a wrench in some other teams' seasons that we're looking at here, guys. So we've each selected 2 teams, and we are going to talk in depth about just why we think that they could be a sleeper, a spoiler, and kind of talk through their schedules a little bit. Not a full team preview. We'll get to those, of course, in the summer, but just kind of a little teaser, a little appetizer for these 6 teams that we're going to talk about today. Garrett, if you're ready, man, I'd love for you to pick one of yours to get going.
Yeah, man, I'm going to take the dangerous jump off the rip so y'all can seem like geniuses afterwards when my take is inevitably destroyed by reality. But, no, my first sleeper team, I'm going to pick the Auburn Tigers. I know that this is dangerous. I shouldn't believe in Auburn, right? I'm picking Auburn when, they're that team that gets paired up with Bama and Georgia every year, and, they can't seem to get it right, and Hugh Freeze and all that stuff. Look, here's the thing. With Auburn, I'm just going to go a little bit on vibes for a second. I don't think you can keep a program that cares as much as Auburn down forever. I just don't think you can. They had a surprisingly good season last year, and that was still with Peyton Thorne quarterbacking them for a good chunk of that season. So I just don't think that you can keep a program like Auburn down when they care as much as they do, the fan base cares as much as they do. And to give him some credit, Hugh Freeze is a good coach. He's won in the SEC before. May not want to speak to his character, but he's a good coach. He's good on the gridiron. He knows what he's doing. And even though, it's been a little bit tough for him getting off the ground at Auburn, it's tough to kind of get traction in that state, especially where that program got left for him. He's still doing a good job, I think, building that program up and doing what he needs to. I think my big questions about Auburn, and I'm willing to answer this one with an affirmative yes. Do we think that Jackson Arnold can be a better quarterback than Peyton Thorne? I think the answer is yes. I think that, there's going to be some mistakes he makes, but I'm willing to believe in the 5-star and the kid that had a bunch of talent when he went to Oklahoma. And I'm willing to kind of believe in him and say that, yeah, there was probably some problems in Oklahoma that made him not as successful that might get remedied by going to Auburn. They're bringing back Cam Coleman, who was electric last year. They bring in Eric Singleton from the portal. That was a huge portal ad for them. Loved what he did, obviously, at Georgia Tech. They're going to have to figure out the run game a little bit. Not going to try to gloss over that one. That one is true, but I think they're going to be able to figure that out. And honestly, for Auburn, for me, it's just the schedule fitting out real nice. Yes, they play Alabama. Yes, they play Georgia. Both those games at Jordan-Hare, by the way. But their tough road games really just go – I'm really trying to struggle with which one I think is going to be the hardest here. But Oklahoma, A&M, and Vanderbilt all on the road, trying to figure out which game of those I think that they struggle with the most. Might want to say A&M, might want to say Vanderbilt, kind of going back and forth with that. But really the schedule sets up nice. They play Baylor to start the year. Couple of nobody games. They do get those couple of road games, but like Missouri's on the schedule. Missouri lost a whole lot of pieces. I don't know if you can really believe in Missouri at this point. They play Arkansas on the road as well. They play Kentucky, who they chose to put their faith in Zach Calzada, and I don't know if that's a choice that I would choose if I were Kentucky. I guess it's not a bad
experience.
Yeah, not a bad choice if you're playing a team from the state of Alabama, I guess. But I don't know if that magic works against Auburn quite the same way. And yeah, I just think for Auburn this year, I think they have the chance not just to play the spoiler. Like I think they could knock off either Georgia or Bama. Wouldn't pick them necessarily in either of those games just straight up. But I mean, look, if they get hot enough at the end of the year in the Iron Bowl, I'll say anything can happen. I just think right now for Auburn, I like a lot of the pieces. I like a lot of what they're building, and I think they should be a lot more explosive on offense this year. I'm going to choose to believe in the Auburn Tigers this year. I think their over-under right now is at 7.5. I like them to go over that number, and I think they should be a fun team.
They've been recruiting really well too. That both in the portal and high school recruiting, and Hugh Freeze is kind of starting to get his guys into that program after they really bottomed out on, in the past. So I could see it. And the magical years for Auburn do tend to be when they get those two big games at home, right? We've seen that time and time again over the course of recent history. So I don't know. Mitch, you have any strong Auburn thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, Garrett, you started by saying you can't keep a program that cares this much down for long. I'm just waiting for that to be true about our football team. So if you could just cross apply, show your work there. I have some folks in College Station that would love to see
I
that
am
math.
actually willing to say I think Auburn might be even more rabid in that department. I know that A&M cares about their athletics, and obviously we're very plugged into that. But man, Auburn, for all that A&M cares, Auburn might care a little bit more.
I think they're a good sleeper / spoiler pick because they do the ingredients are there.
Yeah.
The schedule is not just overly terrifying because of the home road split. So I like the pick. They're a team that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. The fan base having huge expectations, and I don't know that Auburn is ever going to meet those expectations unless they pull off another Gene Chizik national championship run. But I think the ingredients, if Arnold can slow the game down, Auburn should be a whole lot of fun. They should absolutely be a factor to pick off one of those games at home. So overall, I like the pick.
Well, and they've gotten real close the last couple of years to knocking off either of those two teams. They played some close games, and that's with some garbage quarterback play. Like they've had some absolute stinkers back there calling signals for him. So look, do I believe in Jackson Arnold to be like a top quarterback in the whole country? Not really. Like, I don't really think that he'll be a top 10 quarterback this year. But, like, you tell me that he's going to be a top 30, I could probably buy into that and say that he'll be a pretty solid quarterback who will, put up decent numbers, keep the offense going. And it helps when you're throwing to guys like Cam Coleman. Like, Cam Coleman's an absolute stud. You can chuck it up to him. It's kind of that, Joe Burrow, if Jamar's down there somewhere. He can kind of do that with Cam Coleman.
That's how they beat A&M last fall. Just throwing deep routes.
Yeah, it's not because Thorne was any good.
So quick cause for pause, and I'll try to do this. I'll be the negative Nancy here. This is a positive show,
right.
But I'll just throw out the negative Nancy take here on Auburn is Jackson Arnold will need to get his footing, I would say. And I think when you look historically at Auburn, they have had some form of dynamic quarterback play in their most successful season. So if Jackson Arnold can get his footing quickly, I'm a lot more bullish on Auburn, but the schedule's very front-loaded. You mentioned the trip to Baylor week 1. I'll talk a little bit more about that game, spoiler alert, here in a little bit.
I know.
But they're going to Baylor week 1 on a Friday night. They go to Oklahoma, to A&M, and host Georgia all before mid-October. So that is a very, very front-loaded schedule. The back half, if they can survive that, they have, a path kind of like South Carolina last year, honestly, where it kind of clears up in the middle to late portion of that schedule and you can get some momentum before you go into the Iron Bowl at the end of the year. But that's a front-loaded schedule, and he's gonna have to show that he can adjust to a new place and a new system really quickly to hit the ground running there.
In those first couple games, I think you can't be any worse than 3-3. If you're worse than 3-3 in that first 6-game stretch, I think you're not looking too great. But if they can be 4-2, I think a lot of Auburn fans would tell you, like, hey, you go 4-2, that tells you like you went to Norman and beat Oklahoma, or you went to College Station and beat A&M, or you lost to both of them, but you beat Georgia, so all is fair. I think that you're feeling pretty good about yourself if you're sitting in that spot at a 4-2 if you're Auburn, going into that middle part of October.
Well, Mitch, take us to your first sleeper spoiler pick here.
Well, it sounds like we might be, kind of down in the same area maybe of Southeast Texas, but I'm going to go with the Houston Cougars. This is a team that I've been high on since really the portal opened up in December. I loved what Willie Fritz immediately went out and did. You look at some of the guys that he added. He found his quarterback in Connor Wegman from Texas A&M. He went in and added weapons at the wide receiver position. They invested heavily along the offensive line. That's something that they have just not been able to do over these last couple of years is keep the quarterback up. This year they get transfers from Texas Tech, from Cal, from Oklahoma State, from New Mexico, and from Baylor. Basically a new starting 5 potentially for the Cougars, which is a lot of fun. I think exciting for Houston fans. And then, oh, by the way, just last night, 2 nights ago, they add Tanner Koziel, one of the top tight ends in the country. Had almost 1,000 yards receiving at Ball State. Was absolutely one of the unsung heroes as far as national media goes in the 2024 season. He had transferred over to Wisconsin, and then as soon as the spring portal opened up, decided, nope, this isn't the fit for me. And now he's coming to Houston. So the weapons are absolutely loaded for Connor Wegman. I think on the defensive side as well, they've added a couple of key transfers to beef up that line. And then, in the secondary, they go and get a couple of players as well. Keontae Scott comes over from Auburn. Jordan Allen comes over from LSU. So they've got a lot of talent. I think this is the most talented roster that Houston has had in quite some time. And then you start to look at their schedule, and it's very. Oh, and I didn't even mention Dean Connors, transfers basically in city, right? Comes over from Rice after a terrific career for the Owls. Now he's playing for a team that has a legitimate head coach after the flame out there at Rice. And I like all the pieces. So Houston opens with Stephen F. Austin, Rice, in Colorado to start the season before an early bye. Colorado is going to be replacing a lot of pieces, and a team that got just manhandled from the start last year. Trey, remember looking at their schedule and going, "Holy cow! Find me 3 wins on this schedule." I think I can sell you a 3-0 start to the 2025 season for the Cougars. Out of conference, they play Oregon State as well, and then they really get into the thick of the Big 12 schedule. They've got Arizona at home. They'll take on West Virginia at home, TCU at home. Decently challenging road games. I think going to Arizona State, obviously the Big 12 champ. We'll see what UCF looks like. They could be a mess this year. That's a Friday night though in the Bounce House. So always an interesting game when you go to Orlando at night, and then they'll finish at Baylor actually for their season finale. So I'm not here to tell you that Houston's going to win the Big 12 championship or be the Arizona State, but I do like a lot of the ingredients that Fritz has. I think he's quickly turned that program around from kind of a team that was missing its identity in the last few days of Dana Holgerson. The offense just wasn't carrying them, and the defense was atrocious. I think Fritz has brought some toughness and a new pride to Houston football. So I'm bullish on the Cougars this year. I think they're going to be a team that absolutely should be fighting for a bowl game and maybe a lot more, depending on how the early season goes.
Yeah, Mitch, I think you've nailed Houston on this for this offseason. Houston seems like one of those teams that next year when we hit the fall and they start to win a couple games, it's going to be shocking to the college football casuals that haven't really been paying attention. But there's just going to be this little group of us on the side that have been like, no, we told you. Like, we've had it up on our Twitter for a while. You could have read it if you were paying attention. It's a lot better team than it was. And I think that, believing in Fritz and what he's doing is a good idea based on what he's been able to do at previous stops. I think he's going to be able to build up Houston. I'm just really excited about this team to see if they can start to matter again, because it feels like it's been a while since Houston has mattered at football, but it's always fun when they do. It's always fun when they come out and they're a team that can compete. And now officially in the Big 12, getting to kind of make some noise in there. In a year, by the way, in the Big 12, where there should be a lot of openings. There's a lot of talent that's left, a lot of people that have either graduated or gone on to play somewhere in a different conference. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for somebody to step up and take the Big 12. Again, I'm not going to go all the way to the extent that they're going to be the one to do that, but they're going to factor in and cause some ruckus. And there's going to be some teams that we thought might have been competing that are going to get knocked off by Houston.
Guys, I just checked just to make sure that the over-under win total had been updated. And as of last night, according to Vegas Insider, who compiles all the lines and the spreads, 3.5?
3.5.
I saw 5.5.
Okay, so
I saw 5.5. It maybe opened at 3.5, but 5.5 is the last one.
5.5 still feels a little bit low, but 3.5 is an insult.
Yeah, this feels. This is really.
If you can find it at 3.5, go take your money.
Hammer over 3.5 if you can.
Yeah.
Find
Okay,
that.
So I'm seeing they must have not have updated the copy in the article, because it looks like 3.5 is what it opened at. Over is now 5.5 at most. most betting sites, and it looks like the favorite is to go over that. Yeah, I mean, listen, no financial advice here. I'm not your broker, but over feels mighty inviting. Like I
Feels
said, to
nice.
get to just to get to a bowl game, sure, I'll ride with that.
I might have to scoot across the border real quick and make a place, place a little bet at a nice establishment in Louisiana or Oklahoma or something.
That's right.
Well-
Christmas is going to be big at the Turney household this year.
Look at you guys both taking historical basketball powers to finally have a breakthrough football season in Auburn and Houston. So, yeah, I love the over 5.5 bet for Houston. Willie Fritz is a coach that I would bet money on, honestly, and I was willing to go out on a limb and say he had a chance to make a bowl game last year. Even when you looked at the schedule, and what was the final record? 4-8, I think. He wasn't that far off. Obviously, beating Iowa State in a monsoon game, had some really nice moments to build on in that first year for Willie Fritz. So he's a coach that I'll bet on. Year 1 to year 2 jump is usually pretty good for him historically. Here's my Debbie Downer take. We just got to keep Oz the Mentalist as far away from the south side of Houston as possible.
Nah, bro.
If you know, you know. I'll just say that. But
nah, bro. Come on.
Yeah, just keep Oz the Mentalist as far away. But on the real though, a lot will rest on Connor Wegman having a bounce back season. Whatever, there's a lot of hype around him coming into Texas A&M last year, and whether it was Oz the Mentalist or the offensive system just not being a fit with Colin Klein, gotta buy low on Connor Wegman if you're buying into him right now. And it could be a massive payoff if you buy low and hit there.
He's the right kind of quarterback for the Big 12, if we're being honest. Like, he's got the arm talent. He can sling it around. Contact shouldn't be there. Like, it shouldn't get in his head. He should be okay.
Our pain is your gain, Houston. So congrats, Cougars fans.
They got Kyle Allen and turned him into an NFL quarterback.
Right.
They got lots of traffic up 290 and Highway 6. We'll just say that. Guys, I'm going to go with my first one here. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say right now that this one might look extremely foolish come October, November. But when we're talking about coaches that we want to buy in on and coaches that we will bet on, Luke Fickell has had a disastrous start at Wisconsin, both from a on-the-field results standpoint and just a bad luck at the quarterback position. When you think about Tanner Mordecai getting hurt, Tyler Van Dyke getting hurt last year. Wisconsin is my first sleeper pick for this year, though. And when I say that, when I was deciding in our doc, I have 2 question marks and an exclamation point next to Wisconsin. But the schedule's brutal. They lost a ton in the portal. You mentioned the tight end that came in and is now at Houston. They lost both of their quarterbacks that saw time last year. Lost a couple pieces on the defensive line and secondary. But they took 5 4-star transfers on the defensive line. They have a new bedrock on the defensive line coming in this year. And it's not guys that are just flyers from small schools either. They are sitting SEC schools down south, actual dudes on the defensive line that they are taking in. They have a ton of interesting pieces coming up from the FCS level from all around the country. And they nabbed 2 sitting starting quarterbacks from the transfer portal. This is one of the best under the radar quarterback battles in the country. I think Billy Edwards Jr. from Maryland, Danny O'Neal from San Diego State. They actually just nabbed a grad transfer to fill out that quarterback room from Southern Illinois, I believe, in the last couple of days.
Salukis.
So yeah, coming up from the Salukis to get that last year. It's an interesting team. It's a coaching staff that I really like. Like I said, it's a coach in Luke Fickell that I'm willing to bet on. I still believe in the guy. He is the same coach that took Cincinnati to the college football playoff. He's the same coach that built an awesome program there. He has the defensive skins on the wall to make me think that Wisconsin can kind of return to glory on that side of the ball. They've just got to get healthy at the quarterback position. I mentioned it off the top. Tanner Mordecai gets hurt in year 1. He's the high-profile transfer. Tyler Van Dyke gets hurt against Alabama on the first possession last year as he's leading a drive to maybe make that game a little bit more spicy, remember. So it's a team that if they can stay lucky with injuries, I think they have a couple of guys in the quarterback room this year that can be really interesting and make things a lot difficult for some of the teams on their schedule. And if we're just talking about it from a spoiler standpoint, guys, in the first half of the season, they're going to have a lot of chances to really just get some teams tail spinning with how that they start this. They start off with a couple cupcakes. I like that to get some of the kinks worked out against Miami, Ohio, and Middle Tennessee. No offense to Miami, Ohio. I know that could be a tough, interesting game with how the Redhawks have played in the past. Then they go to Tuscaloosa, September 13th. I think that you're just trying to keep that one close. I'll fully give you that one. Conference slate really opens up in an interesting way. They get Billy Edwards' old team, Maryland, at home, and sandwiched in between their two byes, guys. How about this for a run? At Michigan, at home against Iowa, at home against Ohio State, at Oregon in a 4-week stretch. That is brutal beyond brutal. But if you can find a way to steal a couple of those, you've just sent at least one or two teams into a complete tailspin. You have spoiled their season. So if we're looking for spoiler candidates, Wisconsin, if they can get it together, if they can have just a little bit of luck go the other way, we're talking about a team that was right there with Oregon and Penn State last year with a disaster of a quarterback room. So call me crazy, but I think Wisconsin can throw a wrench in a couple teams' plans this year.
I like the spice. I considered Wisconsin for many of the same reasons. And, the defense going into this, I looked up their defensive numbers and in my head had this idea that Wisconsin still was kind of lost from a defensive side. And that's not true.
They much improved last year.
Much improved, especially against the pass. I think it was a top 15 defense against the pass last year. Now they did, if there was a hole, it was protecting against the run. But as you mentioned, they went to the portal with that need in mind. Offensively, they're going to need more than just health, no doubt. I mean, losing Tanner Koziel really hurts because this offense just couldn't move the football last year. Now, counterpoint that you made, what does that offense look like if you have a healthy quarterback? We'll see. And hopefully we get to see that this year. They need to get back to running the football. And if they can do that successfully and pass off of the run, yeah, why can't they pick off one against Iowa? Why can't they pick off a game against Michigan where, there's a lot of youth on this Michigan team? They just sent everybody to the NFL draft. So I think similar to Auburn, similar to Garrett's case with Auburn, it's one of those deals that if you don't know who's on the roster and you look up in mid-October, early November and go, wait a minute, Wisconsin has 5-6 wins already? Like, how on earth did that happen? You can consider Wisconsin one of the biggest surprises of the year. But I think the pieces and ingredients may start to be there. Do you guys feel like this is a make or break year for Luke Fickell?
Yes, I think so. Unfortunately, like I said, he's had a ton of bad luck. But I think some of the decisions that he's made, trying to completely revamp that offense really quickly and switch it from a traditionally ground and pound, 3 yards in a cloud of dust to a high tempo offense.
Yeah.
What do we call that? The dairy raid.
The dairy raid.
The first year. That was a gamble that has not paid off. And you can only get so many of those before a program like Wisconsin runs out of patience with you. I think you got to see some more proof of concept this year, if nothing else. And I think that looks like making a bowl game at the very least.
It definitely has to be making a bowl game, but I don't know what you're talking about. He's getting fired week 1 when DeQuan Finn and Miami, Ohio beat him. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be a lot of fun to watch Miami, Ohio beat them week 1 on that Thursday. But no, this is like a perfect spoiler team. I agree with the take there that this is a spoiler team because they have all the opportunities, and you almost feel like just law of averages, they should get one of those, right? Like they should go ruin somebody's season, but it's going to be a tough battle. It's a tough schedule with a lot of really good teams on it, and I think there's very few teams that would be happy to switch schedules with Wisconsin this year. So I'll kind of sit over here and kind of patiently wait and look, but I'm maybe a little skeptical on the end results, though I do think they can definitely pull off an upset or two.
They were super close last year, like I said. They're right there. They were up on Oregon until very late at home. They were, I believe, down 14-13 or something like that at the end of the third quarter against Penn State before Penn State scored a couple touchdowns late to kind of ice that one. So they're right there with everything going wrong on the offensive side of the ball last year. So just like you said, law of averages kind of evening out. Maybe they can pick off a couple of these playoff hopefuls that they've got on their schedule this year. Garrett, sending it back over to you. Hit us with your second spoiler sleeper candidate.
Boys, I'm doing it for the memes. I'm doing it for the jokes. I'm doing it for the algorithm because the guys always show up when we put this team's name in a title. It's Georgia Tech. All right, I've talked about them a couple times this offseason, but they keep showing up, so I'm going to keep talking about them. And also, I just still, like, as long as you're going to ask the question, what team is being slept on, what team is nobody considering, what team's going to surprise everybody, I'll keep telling you Georgia Tech if you're going to keep asking the question. We'll keep talking about them. Their win total right now is 7.5. I think the third hardest game on their schedule is Duke. They don't play a tough schedule at all. They play Colorado to start. They do go to Colorado, so that's maybe a little bit tricky, but I think they should win that game. They get Gardner-Webb before they play Clemson at home. They play then Temple, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse, North Carolina State, Boston College, and Pitt before they play Georgia. Also in Atlanta, though it is listed at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is lame. Not exactly a murderer's row there of that sort of middle of the schedule between Clemson and Georgia. They're going to have Haynes King back. They're going to have Jamal Haynes back. That's the best Haynes duo since White Christmas and came out in 1954. That's a great duo, and they're going to keep running all over the ACC. They're physical. They play well. I'll link this video to all the other Georgia Tech videos we've done. It's a great team. It's a team that's going to continue to be in that spot. And specifically when we talk spoilers, Clemson and Georgia both being on the schedule and both at least in the city of Atlanta, if not at home technically, I think gives them a great opportunity to ruin one of those two teams' seasons. They got real close a couple of times. Like we're talking about a team that took Georgia to like 73 overtimes and then found a way to just barely lose. You tell me they're going to get one of those this year, I'm going to feel pretty good about that. So, yeah, give me Georgia Tech. They're going to be a sleeper. They're going to be a spoiler. They're going to look good. I'm not willing to get off the train yet. We're going to keep rambling the wreck. I'm sticking with this team. If for nothing else than the memes and the good vibes, right? Like, I've had to kind of give up on Utah the last couple of years. Okay, it's been a hard one for me. It's been hard to kind of give up on some of these teams, but I will stick with Georgia Tech on this.
Cosign. Let's run it back 3 years in a row. Sure.
I can't go against you guys this year. I know I was the hater the last couple of years, and they proved me wrong 2 years in a row. So I would be a fool to go against that this year. I know I said that I was going to be the Debbie Downer, but I mean, y'all enlighten me if I'd forgotten to move in the offseason. They kept Santucci, right? Or did he move on?
No, he moved on.
I think he moved.
Okay.
Hold on. One second.
Mitch is going to look that up while I talk, but I mean, hopefully in that case, that kind of changes the take I was about to have. But hopefully they have instilled enough culture because he was revolutionary on that side of the ball last year, and I hope that they can kind of keep some of the same mindset that he instilled with the pass rushing that he got there.
Yeah, he's in Baltimore with the Ravens now.
Okay, gotcha.
The mindset is all culture coming down from Brent Key, though. Like
I think you're right. Yeah,
and I'm going to keep standing on this too, where it's Brent Key went to and played for Georgia Tech. There's some guys that like if you just go to that school, if it's like your team, you just care a little bit more. I'm going to keep standing on that for Brent Key. I think he cares about watching his school win. He freaking hates Georgia. Like that's his thing. He hates the Georgia Bulldogs. So he's going to do everything he can to beat them. He's going to coach his pants off to try to find a way to make that happen. He's going to do it. And I'm convinced like it's going to happen one of these years. This might be his best opportunity to do it. Georgia, not necessarily as good as I think they were last year. I think there's a good chance. Now, the one, if you want to go on the negative side, yeah, Santucci not being there sucks, but also not having Singleton this year is going to suck in the pass game. That is a little bit of the downside. For a reason I like Auburn, I can't like Georgia Tech in that regard. But I just think they have too much running the football between the two Haynes. They're going to be all right.
The offense is going to be one of the most electric in the ACC. I feel comfortable saying that. Maybe not airing it out over the course of like throwing it all over the field, but the way that they have tailored their offense to Haynes King's skill set and just found a way to make him their dude. I love that, and I love when a coach does that and doesn't just try to fit square pegs into round holes.
Look, Georgia Tech's gonna win 9 games, or they're gonna break Haynes King trying. They're just gonna break his body in half trying to.
I say this in the nicest way possible because you know how big of a fan of Haynes King I am. He's like the gangly version of Bryson Daly from last year, right? Like, I mean, he is. Like,
you ain't wrong.
He's just not. He's not going to win any awards throwing the football, but gosh darn it, like he's going to pull that ball. And yes, he's going to find a way to get you that first down and keep the drive alive.
I need that guy who does the like sports edits where he just kind of like yells and screams like, "Ah!" Like I need that, but a Haynes King compilation of him just like throwing his body in harm's way to get that extra 2 yards. I need one of those compilations.
Yeah, you just described half the internet.
Haynes King, getting 5 yards. Bang!
Bird. Yeah, just find a way to work that one in there too. Mitch, hit us with your second.
Yes. So first of all, this has nothing to do with the fact that I took them to, 8 straight playoffs on College Football 25, won 4 national championships, returned to glory.
Ladies, he's married. Back off, okay?
We're going with the East Carolina Pirates for my second sleeper and or spoiler. Very different, I think, than, one of the big boys. I think, well, unless you're NC State, and then, boy, they spoiled your bowl game, and I'm probably going to pick them to spoil your home opener this year as well. East Carolina hired Blake Harrell midway through the year last year. They were 3-4 when Mike Houston was let go. The offense was awful, couldn't do anything. The defense was just that, and that was Houston's calling card. But the defense had kind of become listless. They fire Houston. They turn it over to the DC in Blake Harrell, and overnight it was like a different football team. They go 5-1 the rest of the way. The offense was just disgusting. They found ways to put up consistent points, and the defense ranked 13th nationally in red zone defense. They were giving up less than a point a trip into the red zone. They generated 14 interceptions, top 30 in FBS. They created 22 total turnovers, also top 30 in the FBS. They were averaging 7.2 tackles for loss per game, which was top 15 in the country. And they had one of the most efficient play calling defenses in the country. That was top 15 nationally. So the defense found an identity, which was sick. I think with that brand, that ECU brand, the swashbuckling aura, I think that ECU can have, having a shutdown defense is fundamental. And then the offense under John David Baker, who, by the way, stayed in Greenville. That was one of the biggest wins of the offseason for ECU. Over 435 yards per game. They were passing it at a 264-yard clip, which was huge, a big step forward. And the running game took off. Most importantly, the running game took off. And that was what ultimately won them that bowl game, was the ability to just ground and pound and gash the Wolfpack for basically whatever they wanted. So, I really am excited about what they bring to the table this year. I think there's a lot of continuity on the staff, and then they went and just won the transfer portal. When you look at what they did as far as the American Conference goes, Tyler Johnson comes in from Penn State. Peyton Mangrum comes in from South Carolina. Guys, program near and dear to my heart from my D2 days. They bring in Key Crowell in the backfield, the defensive backfield from Indianapolis. Shout out the Greyhounds. And yeah, I just think there's a lot more talent that's on this roster. Catton Hauser has won the quarterback battle. Jake Garcia just transferred to like his 6th school, leaving that program. So, the quarterback depth maybe takes a little bit of a step backwards, but Hauser won the job late in the season. He's clearly the guy. The Michigan State transfer was kind of my favorite to win that job long term. And the vibes are high. And as I mentioned, they go into NC State to open up the season next year. Carter Finley. Listen, do we really know what NC State is. I don't know that they have a true identity. It feels like maybe they missed their championship window a little bit. They do get BYU at home, which obviously BYU, very, very talented team. We'll see what they bring into 2025. They've got Army. They go to Tulane. But, I think this is a team that can make a run. Now, you do have to get your wins early because, as I mentioned, at Tulane to start October, and then you've got Memphis coming to town. We'll see what the Tigers are without Seth Hennigan, obviously the quarterback position. And then at UTSA, the Alamo Dome is never a fun place to play in November. All that being said, though, this is a team that, was very happy to make it to a bowl game last year, to get to 8 wins on the season. I think 8-9 wins is right back there on the calendar for me. If the offense can stay moving the football and the defense stays as nails as it is, they bring in the defensive coordinator over from Liberty, allows Harrell to kind of be the CEO, right? Run everything and not have to call defensive plays. So I'm excited. I'm bullish about what the folks in Greenville have going on. And I think ECU is going to be one of those teams in the American that you have to take seriously this year.
See, this is one of those like crazy well researched takes where I'm just sitting there at the end of it like, damn, okay, like you got me, man. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm gonna buy all the stock. Put me in the purple. And give me the saber so I can start swashbuckling. Right?
Absolutely. Get your saber. Let's come
also,
east with me.
Can we? The only thing I really have to add is just I really want to key in on. Can we talk about BYU taking the road game to ECU? Like
Sure.
that's maybe my weirdest. Like, is that weirder than them playing? Well, did they play at Coastal? Was that
in the COVID year?
Yeah,
that's
that's
Coastal, wasn't it? Yeah.
That I didn't dream that, right? That actually happened because some of these weird, like, hey, we're just gonna go play in the Carolinas just because we can. Like, what is BYU doing? Like, is this part of a greater outreach thing for them? Are their numbers down in the Carolinas? Like, I don't know what's happening, but BYU playing at ECU is one that I will make appointment viewing.
Well, I'm wondering if they had some sort of agreement with the American because they played at SMU last year.
You might be right.
I'm assuming that was scheduled when SMU was in the American. So maybe it's a conference affiliation thing.
I like Garrett's point here. They might be after more than just a football game.
Well, and if you remember that, this is memory lane real quick. If you remember that Mormons versus Mullets game, I think was the unofficial moniker. It was scheduled in the middle of the week, if I recall. It
Wednesday, wasn't it?
It was a Saturday night game because I remember it was the night before I got married.
Right.
Yeah, that was elite.
But I think they scheduled it like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yes, they scheduled it like the Tuesday or Wednesday of that week because both of them were looking for opponents. Both of them were surprise undefeated teams at that point in the year. Right. And they were like, well, heck, why not just set this up?
Game,
and I remember there was like a tracker of the BYU equipment truck trying to get it already started. I can't remember who they were supposed to play. It got canceled because of COVID, but
Liberty,
it was going west. And then everyone was tracking it coming back east because it literally had to make like a coast to coast overnight drive to get to Conway in time.
It all feels like a fever dream at this point, but like that was one of the craziest, like, especially because of the context of like all of us being together and you were getting married the next day. Like that was such a freaking fun game.
It was. Just, like, it was an electric game. We watched it at the Groomsman Airbnb. It was so awesome.
Hopefully we get some of those same vibes off of this game. I'm hoping for the upset. That'd be nothing crazier than them
just without the global pandemic. The vibes without the global pandemic.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have to like shut the world down and have like total catastrophe to make it happen. But I also hope Trey's not getting married the day after because that
would be disappointing.
That'd be something else, man.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm excited. I'm with you, Garrett. That was a very well-researched take, Mitch. If you were my financial advisor and you're telling me to buy stock with that much research, I would hand over my 401k, man. Like I would just go all in, but
take all my money.
Very much not financial advice.
Quick drive by before we move on to the last one. What is their absolute ceiling this year? Because they get a shot at all of the traditional powers in the American. They get a shot at Army, they get a shot at Memphis, shot at Tulane, like you said.
Yeah.
They're plus 2,500 right now on DraftKings to win the American. is that a worthwhile flyer for people? Is that ceiling within the realm of possibility?
Yeah, I think so. I think the hard thing about picking G5 champs is just how much turnover there is in the
Yeah.
conference on a year-to-year basis, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think Tulane is trending the right way. I think Army, like, doubt Jeff Monken at your own peril. I think Army is up there. Memphis has a lot of talent on the roster. They were one of the only G5 teams to get 4-star recruits this past recruiting cycle. So I think the Tigers are talented. I mean, I think Jeff Traylor, I still think I like what he's doing down at UTSA, even though that defense
Big transition year last year.
Yeah.
They lost a
Yeah.
lot of talent before that.
They did. That defense was supposed to be really good, and they just weren't. So I don't know. I think absolutely. If you're looking for a unofficial flyer to take in the American, sure, ride with the Pirates. The vibes are high. The talent's there. They've got a head coach that they really believe in. It feels like there's a lot of hope for the first time with ECU in a long time. So, I don't know if I would crown them one of the favorites quite yet. Obviously, the Vegas markets haven't, but certainly a team that you look up and they've got their, the last 3 games and they're fighting for 9-10 wins. I could absolutely see that.
Love it. I love it. Well, I'll close this out here with my last spoiler and sleeper projection. And guys, I teased this earlier. I'm going to go right up the road from right in between where the 3 of us are right now. I'm going to go to Waco and talk about the Baylor Bears because it feels like we've forgotten 2 things as a college football just populace. We forgot that the Bears surprisingly went 8-4 last year, and they were listed on the Big 12 scenario page going into the final week. There was a scenario where Baylor could have made the Big 12 championship going into the last week. It was a wild scenario, but it existed nonetheless. And I think we've forgotten about Sawyer Robertson and just the absolute revelation that he was for the Baylor offense that was scuffling, to put it frankly, right? We were not expecting Robertson to be the guy last year. We were all about DeQuan Finn, and rightfully so because he had balled out at Toledo. But Sawyer Robertson comes in and just absolutely turns the season around for Baylor by the way that he played. He's coming into this year. We're going to have a QB ranking show coming up in a few weeks. But for me right now, he's a top 3, probably quarterback in the conference. And I think it's a really firm foundation to start on for Baylor. Dave Aranda is going to have the defense ready to go. He's been slowly but surely building that side of the ball back up from where they were when he started. And they're number 11 in the country and number 2 in the Big 12 in returning production. So they've got a lot of pieces coming back on both sides of the ball from a team, like I said, that was right there, had an actual championship scenario in the last week of the season last year. But spoiler-wise, this is maybe my long shot pick to make the Big 12 title game really, really early because of the way the schedule sets up for them. I really love this schedule for Baylor. Experienced team, like I mentioned. They host Auburn week 1. I think that is probably the most slept on non-conference game in college football right now because what that would mean for the Baylor program to get a win over an SEC school. I don't know the last time Baylor hosted an SEC school in Waco. I don't know if it's ever happened at their new stadium, at McLean Stadium. But if they can find a way to knock off an SEC school at home week 1 on a Friday night, that's just going to set the bar for me much higher for this year for Baylor. So a big game to open the season against Auburn. They go to SMU week 2, so maybe the toughest 1-2 back-to-back for any team in the country, hosting Auburn and then going to SMU. And then their Big 12 schedule, honestly, guys, sets up pretty well. They host Arizona State and Kansas State before their bye. And after the bye, it's pretty manageable in terms of just teams that you expect to, be towards the top of that conference. After the bye week, they're at TCU. That's going to be a tough game. The only other tough road game that they have potentially is at Arizona. And Arizona is going to be a team that, while they have the quarterback figured out, is obviously we saw what happened on the field last year and they're losing T-Mac. So the home road splits in conference are there. They host the Houston team that we're also really high on to end the year. Love the home road splits. Love the opportunities week 1 and 2 against Auburn and SMU to make a statement. And they're a really interesting team to look at from the standpoint of a flyer bet to win the Big 12.
They're a team that, if they play their cards right, by the end of September, we're talking about them as the top 15 team probably. Because you can go out there, beat Auburn, beat SMU, beat Arizona State. Those would be some massive statements to start off your season and obviously get a lot of attention. So I definitely like this pick as there's a possibility. There's a real lane where, Baylor could make this thing work. I'm really, really curious just because I haven't seen the consistency there outside of, I guess, one kind of magic year. Really just haven't seen the consistency there for Baylor, but they're in the right spot, and there is a power vacuum kind of in the Big 12 right now. Why not Baylor is a decent question to ask, right? Why can't Baylor be the team that fills up that power vacuum now that so many teams have lost so much? They're bringing back the quarterback, so why not?
I think if Baylor can get to the quarterback this year, that would be a massive add for them. They were bottom half of the country in sacks and tackles for loss last year. They hit the portal hard, brought in some new edge rushers, a couple of at least one new defensive tackle coming over from A&M. Big kid, space eater. So I think if they can plug the run and get to the quarterback, that helps tremendously. They also bring in a true speedster on the outside and Kobe Prentice coming over from Alabama. So yeah, you've got Sawyer Robertson, who's got one more year to take the top off of defense. And then guys, this could be the start of a real run maybe for Baylor, Garrett, to your point, where if they can fill the power vacuum and start to get some consistency going. They've got Walker White that came over from Auburn in the transfer portal. So, probably his ship next year at the quarterback position. We've gone from Dave Aranda being the first coach out potentially in the betting odds to how high can he go now at Baylor. And I think that's an awesome development. Aranda, by all accounts, is just a great guy. Maybe a little stuffy and slow to adjust to things, but once he gets comfortable, his players love playing for him, and he's obviously a really good football coach. So I'm rooting for Baylor here. I think this is a big time opportunity that they have to make a statement in the Big 12, especially with teams like Arizona State and BYU and, Texas Tech trying to claw up into that upper echelon as well. Utah maybe on their way out. Really, really cool opportunity for the folks in Waco.
It's an absolute travesty they're not playing Tech in the regular season.
It is.
I don't know who decided that at the Big 12 office, but that is an egregious error in the schedule.
Not having the Bud Bowl, that's a Big 12 staple. There's no reason to lose it.
But
it's the first time since 1956 that the teams won't play. I mean, what are we doing?
It's terrible.
Thank God we're preserving traditional rivalries with Cincinnati and UCF and Arizona State, though. Thank goodness those are still on the schedule.
Hate that from the Big 12 office, which is just down the street. I might have to go rap on some doors.
Man, well, guys, we are sitting here Easter weekend. And by the way, I should have said this off the top. Hope it's a great Easter weekend, great Resurrection Sunday for you as you're listening to this on Monday. But as we're sitting here in May or April, look at me, I'm jumping ahead to May already, but just not ready for football season. As we're sitting here in mid to late April, so much could change, but keep it locked here. Keep it locked on our social media to make sure that you're keeping up with all the coverage. And as we inch closer and closer to preview season, we got a ton of fun episodes to hold us over before we get to conference previews. We got a lot planned on that side of things as well. And we're just counting down. As we record this, I think we're 123 days out from Dublin, Ireland and Farmageddon. So counting down the days and just hoping that the summer can go by very, very quickly. It'll be here before we know it. We're making sure that we are ready when it's here. For Mitch Mason, for Garrett Turney, I am Trey Reeves. We'll see you guys next time.
Gracious. Yep. How about